You know, I never saw myself as the kind of person who'd scheme for revenge. I was raised to be polite, to keep the peace, always be the bigger person. But sometimes, when someone pushes you to your absolute breaking point, something just snaps. And trust me, the utter chaos that followed was nothing short of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. My name's Jake, I'm 32, and I've been married to my amazing wife, Emily, for 5 years. We've had our fair share of ups and downs, like any couple, but there's always been one giant, persistent shadow, Emily's mother, Diane. She's a special kind of person. The type who expects the entire world to spin around her, and if it doesn't, she makes damn sure everyone feels the cosmic imbalance. I've put up with so much over the years. Diane always thought I wasn't good enough for Emily. Boys. She'd find new, creative ways to criticize me. My job wasn't prestigious enough. My gifts were never thoughtful enough. I didn't call her often enough. You get the picture. But through it all, I really tried to keep things civil, mostly for Emily's sake. Then came the birthday fiasco. Diane was turning 60, and she decided she wanted a massive, extravagant party. I'm talking about a fancy venue, catered dinner, a live band, the whole 9 yards. And of course, she just assumed I'd pay for it. Not asked. Just assumed. Emily and I were at her parents' house for dinner when she casually dropped it. "I've been looking at venues," she said, swirling her wine glass like some aristocrat in a period drama. "And I think the Grand Oak Ballroom would be just perfect for my party." The Grand Oak Ballroom. I knew the place. It was high-end, the kind of place people book for weddings. "That sounds fancy," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Oh, it is," Diane purred, a smug smile spreading across her face. "But it's a milestone birthday, and I deserve something special." Then she turned to me, her eyes glinting. "Of course, you'll be taking care of the costs, Jake. It's only fair." I nearly choked on my drink. "I'm sorry, what?" Emily stiffened beside me. She knew how her mother could be, but even she looked genuinely taken aback. "Well," Diane continued, explaining it to me as if I were a small, slightly dim-witted child. "You're the man of the family. It's your responsibility to ensure I have a proper celebration. Besides, you have a good job. It's not like you can't afford it." Now, here's the thing. I do have a good job. I work in finance, and Emily and I live comfortably. But Diane? She had no earthly idea what our finances actually looked like. Emily and I were saving for a house. A big, lavish party for a woman who barely tolerated me was not part of that plan. I glanced at Emily, waiting for her to say something, anything. To my immense relief, she did. "Mom," she said, her voice calm but firm, "that's not Jake's responsibility. If you want a big party, you need to pay for it yourself." Diane gasped as if Emily had just slapped her across the face. "Excuse me?" "You heard her," I said, now feeling a surge of courage. "We're not in a position to drop that kind of money on a party. If you want something extravagant, maybe everyone in the family can pitch in." "I shouldn't have to split the cost of my own birthday party," she snapped, her face turning red. "This is about showing appreciation for everything I've done. And as my son-in-law, it's your duty to step up." Her entitlement was astounding. I looked around the room, half expecting someone, anyone, to tell her she was being unreasonable. Emily's dad, Greg, was sitting in his usual spot, staring into his drink, clearly wanting no part of this drama. Emily's younger sister, Megan, was glued to her phone, pretending not to hear a single word. This was just normal for them. And that's when it hit me. Diane wasn't just expecting me to pay. She had already decided I would. I should have put my foot down right then and there. But I didn't want to cause a bigger scene. Instead, I just mumbled, "I'll think about it," and quickly changed the subject. That night, Emily and I had a long talk. She was just as frustrated as I was, but she sighed, admitting she wasn't surprised. She's always been like this, Emily said. She assumes she's the queen, and we're all here to serve her. Still, we agreed we'd offer a compromise, maybe help with a portion of the cost, or suggest a more reasonable party. We were trying to be the bigger people. The very next morning, before I even had a chance to call Diane, I got a message from her. A text. It read, "I've booked the Grand Oak Ballroom for my birthday. They need a deposit by Friday. You can send the money to my account." I stared at my phone in utter disbelief. She hadn't waited for my answer. She had just decided. I showed the text to Emily, who let out a groan. "You have to tell her no." So I did. I called Diane, and as politely as I could, I told her that we weren't paying for the party. Her reaction? Fury. Pure, unadulterated fury. "You're ungrateful," she spat. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? My own daughter married a selfish, stingy man." Then she hung up. Just like that. For the next few days, Diane ignored both of us. It was actually kind of peaceful. Then, out of nowhere, she sent another message. "You don't have to pay for the whole thing. Just cover the catering and entertainment. That's fair." Fair? I ignored the text. Then, a week later, Emily and I were at her parents' house again for another family dinner. I had braced myself for the inevitable tension, the awkward silence, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Diane was in an unusually good mood, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. Then, midway through dinner, she dropped the bomb. "Oh, by the way, Jake," she said, a sweet, almost condescending smile playing on her lips. "You're not invited to my party." Silence. I blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said breezily, sipping her drink. "Since you clearly don't respect me enough to contribute, I don't want you there. Emily, of course, you're still invited." Emily gaped at her. "Mom, you can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," Diane said, still smiling sweetly. "It's my party. I decide the guest list." I sat there staring at her, feeling a mix of shock, anger, and weirdly, relief. If she didn't want me there, fine. But the sheer audacity of banning me while still expecting me to pay for the whole thing. I glanced at Emily, who was fuming, her jaw clenched tight. Diane took another sip of her drink, looking entirely pleased with herself. That's when I made my decision. A quiet, terrifying resolve settled over me. I wasn't just going to refuse to pay. Oh no. I was going to make sure this party never happened. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, dangerous smile creeping onto my face as the first pieces of my plan started clicking into place. Diane had no idea what was coming. I didn't say a word for the rest of dinner. I just sat there, listening to Diane prattle on about how wonderful her party was going to be, how excited everyone was, how she had chosen the most exquisite decorations. She had no idea that in less than a week, everything was going to unravel. Emily was seething on the way home. "I can't believe her," she muttered, gripping the steering wheel like she was trying not to snap it in half. "She seriously thinks she can ban you and still expect you to pay?" "She does," I said, staring out the window, my mind already racing. "And that's the problem." Emily sighed. "What are you thinking?" I turned to her, my mind already working out the intricate details. "I'm thinking that if she wants to play games, I can play too. And I play to win." Now, here's the thing about Diane. She had never planned this party properly. She had made big demands and then just expected other people to handle all the actual logistics. That's where I saw my golden opportunity. Step 1. I needed to know exactly what had been booked. Diane, being Diane, had bragged about every single detail. She had secured the Grand Oak Ballroom for the venue. She had hired an expensive caterer that specialized in plated gourmet meals. She had even booked a live jazz band and a professional photographer to capture her grand evening. And every single one of those things required a deposit. A deposit I knew for a fact hadn't been paid yet, because she had expected me to pay it. I waited until the next morning to make my move. First, I called the Grand Oak Ballroom. "Hi," I said, adopting my most professional, slightly regretful tone. "I'm calling on behalf of Diane. She recently booked an event with you, but we need to make a few changes." The receptionist, a polite woman named Linda, pulled up the reservation. "Yes, we have her down for Saturday evening." "That's correct," I said. "Unfortunately, we're going to need to cancel the reservation." There was a pause. "I see. Well, we haven't received the deposit yet, so that won't be an issue." "Perfect." Linda then informed me that since no contract had been signed and no payment had been made, the ballroom would simply release the date for other bookings. Just like that, Diane's venue was gone. Next, I called the caterer. Same story. No deposit, no reservation, canceled. Then the band, the photographer, every single piece of Diane's perfect party gone. I could only imagine the absolute chaos that was going to unfold when she found out. But I wasn't done yet. Diane had sent out invitations weeks ago, telling people to RSVP directly to her. But there was one key detail she had conveniently forgotten: the actual address of the venue. She had been so confidently arrogant that everything would go according to her plan that she hadn't included it in the original invitations. Instead, she had promised to send the details closer to the date, which meant that at this point, no one actually knew where the party was supposed to be. With the venue gone and no backup plan in place, Diane was about to face a nightmare of her own making. And I was just going to sit back and watch it unfold. 3 days before the party, Diane still had no idea what was coming. Emily and I had kept our distance, knowing that the moment she realized what had happened, the fallout would be absolutely nuclear. I was sitting on the couch, casually scrolling through my phone, when Emily's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, sighed dramatically, and mouthed, "Mom." "Here we go," she muttered before answering. The moment she said, "Hello," Diane's voice blasted through the speaker so loudly I could hear every single panicked word. "Emily, we have a disaster. I just got off the phone with the Grand Oak Ballroom, and they said our reservation is gone. They gave the date to someone else." Emily gave me a quick, knowing look, and I just smirked. She put the phone on speaker. "Wait, what do you mean?" she asked, feigning surprise expertly. "I mean someone canceled my reservation," Diane shrieked. "And when I called the caterer, they said the same thing. And the band? And the photographer? Everything is gone. My party is ruined." I could practically hear the sound of Diane pacing frantically, probably waving her arms wildly in the air as she ranted. "This has to be a mistake," Emily said, still playing along beautifully. "Did you sign a contract with them?" Diane hesitated. "Well, no, but I told them I was going to pay. I just hadn't sent the money yet because I was waiting for Jake to do it." Emily turned to me, raising an eyebrow. I took that as my cue to jump in. "Oh," I said, trying to sound as innocent as possible. "You were waiting for me to send the money? But I thought I wasn't invited to the party." Silence. A long, awkward, delicious silence. Then Diane shrieked, "This is your fault." "My fault?" I asked, barely holding back a laugh. "You told me I wasn't welcome. Why would I pay for something I'm not even allowed to attend?" "You should have told me you weren't paying," she snapped, pure venom in her voice. "I did," I said flatly. 2 weeks ago. You just chose to ignore it." There was another pause. And then Diane switched tactics, her voice suddenly turning syrupy sweet, sickly sweet. "Jake, honey," she cooed as if we hadn't just been screaming at each other moments before. "You know I didn't mean that. Your family, and family helps each other. I know we had a little misunderstanding, but there's still time to fix this." I leaned back, pretending to consider it. "Oh, how exactly do you plan to fix it?" Diane jumped on the opportunity. "If you send the money today, I can try to book everything again. It might cost more at the last minute, but I'm sure we can make it work." I couldn't help but grin. She still thought she could manipulate me. Sorry, Diane, I said, stretching out the words, savoring them. I would help, but you made it very clear that I'm not welcome at your party. So, really, this isn't my problem. Her voice dropped into a furious whisper. You're being selfish. I shrugged. No, I'm setting boundaries. But hey, best of luck finding a new venue 3 days before the event. Then, before she could start screaming again, I hung up. Emily let out a long breath and tossed her phone onto the couch. Wow, she said, a small, amused smile playing on her lips. She's panicking. She thought she had everything under control, I said. She's not going to let this go, Emily warned, a flicker of concern in her eyes. I knew she was right. Diane wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. She would fight tooth and nail to salvage this party, and if she couldn't, she'd find someone to blame. I had a feeling this wasn't over. I didn't hear anything from Diane for the rest of the day, which was unusual. Normally, when she didn't get her way, she'd keep hammering at the problem, calling everyone she could think of to force things back into her control. The silence meant one of two things. Either she was scrambling for a solution, or she was plotting something even worse. Emily and I went about our evening as usual, but I had a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Diane wasn't the type to just accept what had happened. She was stubborn, manipulative, and worst of all, she believed she was never, ever wrong. And sure enough, the next morning, the chaos truly began. Emily's phone buzzed at 7 a.m., way too early for a casual chat. She groaned, reaching for it. But as soon as she saw the screen, her face twisted in annoyance. She's calling again, she said, defeated. I sighed. Might as well see what disaster she's come up with now. Emily reluctantly answered and put it on speaker. Diane didn't even say hello. She was already mid-rant. I fixed it. Emily and I exchanged a glance. That was unexpected. Fixed what? Emily asked cautiously. The party. I found a new venue. It's not as nice as Grand Oak, but it'll do. And the best part? They still have availability for Saturday, but I had to put down a rush deposit to secure it. I frowned, already seeing where this was going. So, Diane continued, her voice suddenly very businesslike. I need you to send me the money today. It's non-refundable, so we have to act fast. Emily exhaled sharply. Mom, you do realize that you're still asking Jake to pay for a party he's not invited to, right? Oh, stop being dramatic. Diane snapped. He's family. He's supposed to support us. I finally spoke up. Diane, let me get this straight. You lost your venue, your caterer, your band, and your photographer. You had to scramble for a last-minute replacement, and now you want me to pay for it. After banning me from attending. She scoffed. That was just a misunderstanding. Of course, you can come now. I almost laughed out loud. So, now that you need my money, suddenly I'm welcome again? Diane hesitated. Then her voice softened into what she probably thought was charm. Jake, sweetheart, you know I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I was just trying to keep things intimate, but since you're so worried about it, of course you're invited. In fact, I insist. I had to give her credit for the sheer effort, but I wasn't buying it. You know what's funny? I said, keeping my voice light, almost conversational. The only reason you even need a new venue is because you never secured the first one properly. If you had just paid your own deposit, none of this would be happening. Diane's tone turned icy. So, are you going to send the money or not? I smiled. Not. She let out an exaggerated gasp, as if I had just slapped her. You're really going to be this selfish? Do you know how embarrassing this is for me? People are expecting an elegant event, not some last-minute, thrown-together disaster. Then you probably should have planned it better, I said, unable to hide my amusement. Diane lost it. She started shrieking about how I was ruining everything, how I was a terrible son-in-law, how I was disrespecting her after everything she had done for me, which, to be clear, was absolutely nothing. Emily finally had enough. "Mom, Jake is not paying. And if you keep acting like this, I don't even know if I want to come." That shut Diane up for a moment. Then, in a voice dripping with pure venom, she spat, "Fine. I don't need your money, but don't expect to be welcome in this family anymore." Emily scoffed. "That's rich, considering you were the one who uninvited us." And with that, Emily hung up. For a few seconds, we just sat there in stunned silence. Then I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "Well," I said, stretching my arms. "That went well." Emily let out a short, hollow laugh. "I give it 2 hours before she calls back with some new demand." She was wrong. Diane didn't call back in 2 hours. She called back in 10 minutes. But this time, she wasn't just screaming at us. She had an entire new plan. And somehow, it was even worse. When Diane called back just 10 minutes later, I almost didn't answer. I figured it was just going to be another round of yelling, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation, but something told me to pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe the sheer insanity of it all. Either way, I swiped to answer and put her on speaker. Her voice was eerily calm, almost unsettling, like she had spent the past 10 minutes convincing herself she had found the perfect way to force my hand. "Jake," she began, her voice sugary sweet again. "I thought about it, and I realized now that you might not have understood how important this is to me. This party isn't just about me. It's about family. It's about all of us coming together to celebrate. And I don't want there to be any hatred between us. So, I have a compromise." I leaned back, amused. "Oh yeah? What kind of compromise?" "You pay for the party," she said smoothly, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. "And in return, you get to attend." I nearly choked on my own laughter. "Oh, how generous. You'll allow me to come to the event that I'm funding. How kind." Diane sighed dramatically, like I was being difficult on purpose. "Jake, this is an amazing deal. I know you were upset about being left out before, but I'm giving you the opportunity to be part of something special." I could almost hear Emily gritting her teeth beside me. "Mom," she snapped, her patience completely gone. "Do you even hear yourself? You're acting like you're doing him a favor when you're still demanding thousands of dollars for a party that you planned for your birthday. This isn't a negotiation. He's not paying." Diane's fake patience snapped instantly. "Then I guess you two don't care about this family at all. I guess you just want to be selfish and petty and ruin my big day because you can't handle the fact that sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love." I shook my head slowly. "Diane, love doesn't mean throwing money at your ridiculous demands. You didn't even ask me if I was willing to contribute. You demanded it. And then when I didn't immediately comply, you tried to ban me from the event I was supposed to pay for. That's not love. That's entitlement." For a moment, there was silence. A deep, heavy silence. "Well," she said coldly, her voice now flat and emotionless. "Since he refused to do the right thing, I had to find another solution. So, I asked around and I found someone else willing to cover the cost." Emily stiffened beside me, her eyes wide. "Who?" Diane's next words made my stomach drop. "Your father." Emily's face went pale. "Wait, what?" "Oh, yes," Diane said, her smugness back in full force, a triumphant note in her voice. "I explained the situation to him, and he was horrified that you two would treat me this way. He said it was disgraceful that a son-in-law should respect his elders, and that if you two weren't going to support this family, he would." Emily clenched her jaw, her voice barely a whisper. "Mom, Dad doesn't even like you." Diane scoffed. "Well, he must care enough to pay for my party." I ran a hand down my face. This was utterly insane. Emily's parents had been divorced for years, and they barely tolerated each other. For Diane to have convinced her ex-husband to pay for this party meant she had spun a sob story of epic proportions. Emily was furious. "You manipulated him, didn't you? What did you tell him? That we left you destitute? That we were out here blowing money while you suffered?" Diane sniffed disdainfully. "I simply told him the truth. That my ungrateful daughter and her husband refused to be part of this family's traditions, and that I had no choice but to ask for his help. And unlike you two, he actually came through for me." I exhaled slowly, a strange calm washing over me. "Diane, you do realize what this means, right?" "What?" she asked, clearly expecting me to be jealous or regretful. "It means you have your money," I said. "It means your party is happening." "Yes," she said triumphantly. "Exactly." I smirked. "And it means you officially have no reason to contact me ever again." Silence. Then, "Excuse me?" "You made your choice," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "You found someone else to fund your nonsense. So now you don't need me, and that means I don't need to put up with you anymore. Have a great party, Diane." "I won't be there." Emily nodded, her voice hard. "Neither will I." Diane lost it. She started screaming about how we were ungrateful, how we were punishing her for simply wanting a nice party, how we were abandoning her when all she wanted was to be surrounded by family. But we weren't listening anymore. Emily reached over and hung up. And just like that, it was over. The aftermath was honestly hilarious. Apparently, after her dramatic victory call to us, Diane had gone back to the new venue to confirm everything, only to find out that the generous contribution from Emily's dad wasn't as big as she had implied. He had covered some of the costs, but definitely not all of them. And when Diane realized she still owed money to finalize things, she had a full-blown meltdown at the venue, demanding they lower the price. They refused. She threatened to sue. They apparently just laughed at her. In the end, Diane had to downgrade everything. She lost the fancy decorations, the expensive catering, and the live band. The party still happened, but instead of the extravagant event she had envisioned, it was a low-budget mess in a half-empty banquet hall. And the best part? Most of the guests didn't even show up. Word had apparently spread that Diane had tried to ban her own son-in-law from the party after demanding he pay for it, and people weren't exactly eager to celebrate someone who acted like that. The turnout was embarrassingly small, and according to my sources, because of course there were sources, Diane spent most of the night sulking at a table, furious that her big moment had been ruined. Meanwhile, Emily and I spent that evening relaxing at home, ordering takeout, and watching a movie without a care in the world. Honestly, best decision ever. Diane hasn't spoken to us since, which is honestly a blessing. Emily's dad eventually realized he had been manipulated, and though he was annoyed about losing money, even he admitted that it was worth it just to see Diane suffer the consequences of her own entitlement. So yeah, that's the story of how my mother-in-law tried to ban me from a party she expected me to pay for, only to end up completely humiliated in the end. I have zero regrets. But what do you guys think? Did I handle this the right way? Or should I have done something differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.